Well, hello. This is Hope, Faith, and Infertility. Real infertility stories coming to you from Southeastern Fertility in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm Mark Mellinger, the marketing director for Southeastern Fertility. So, would you travel hundreds of miles to add to your family? We're going to talk with someone today who has been willing to do that. Her name is Ingrid Cox. Ingrid and her husband have been Southeastern Fertility patients, and you're going to hear about their connection because it goes back a little bit before Dr. John Gordon came to Southeastern Fertility. So we'll unpack all that today. But first, Ingrid, so good to have you with me today, and I really appreciate you sitting down to share your story. And let's go back to the beginning. I mean, infertility is not something that really anybody expects to face when they're starting out. Can you talk about how you found out this would be a battle for you?
So, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Dr. Gordon definitely has become family, so it's an honor to be here and share our story. And I'll try not to get emotional. Our,
You can get emotional, that's okay.
Thank you. Our story began in 2016, actually. I personally, I grew up Catholic. I've always been a Christian. I have some traditional values, and I didn't want to have a family without being married. And it just took a little longer than I planned. In your mind, you're always like, okay, when I'm ready, it's going to happen. I'm going to meet my Prince Charming and everything's going to work out just perfect. And it just wasn't the case for me. By the time I met my husband and we got married, well, actually, a little before we got married, we knew that we wanted to start a family. We both were a little older, and I started the process when I was 40. So time was of the essence. Initially, I really just didn't think anything was wrong. I just thought everything was going to be fine. I initially found out that one of my fallopian tubes was blocked. Once I found out that there was a simple procedure where it could be cleared out, I thought, okay, no problem. Everything will be fine at this point. After that, we found out that a fibroid that I had that was initially pretty small grew to be very large and took up a large portion of my uterus. And Dr. Gordon was very honest in that basically there would be no room for a baby to grow. And it was something that had to come out, and that entailed surgery and a 3-month recovery. So we jumped over that hurdle. Right after that, we ended up getting pregnant naturally, and we lost that baby at 9 weeks. And we then went just full force ahead with working with Dr. Gordon and going down the process of IVF.
And I should mention that at that time, Dr. Gordon was practicing in the Washington, D.C. area, and that's where you live, in that area, right?
It is. We still live here today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so I mean, obviously you have the pain of a miscarriage. You didn't take a whole lot of time to to sort of uh, sit in the grief of that, because you knew that your biological clock was ticking. That's how a lot of people would put it. Was that the wise move in your case? I think it's different for everybody.
I think it's a very personal choice. We thank God that my husband and I were on the same page, and we wanted to have a family, and we were willing to do whatever we needed to do. I don't feel that God makes mistakes. Obviously, it was very difficult to go through a miscarriage. You just get excited, you get attached, and we couldn't believe that our little miracle baby was born after all of these trials and tribulations and medication and doctors that we had visited already up to that point. So we just felt like he was meant to be. So it's very devastating to actually go to the doctor and hear that there was no heartbeat,
Hmm.
and it was just very devastating. But I think it's just a very personal choice. We were older, we knew that we didn't have a lot of time. Of course, we grieved the loss of our baby, but we knew that we couldn't stay in that place for a very long time. So we had to just move forward. And luckily, we were already working with Dr. Gordon. So it was easy to just kind of make that call and continue the process with him.
So what next? Explain what your next option was and how it went.
So prior to Dr. Gordon, and again, we started this process in 2016, we were working with a different fertility clinic. We had gone through 2 IUIs and an IVF, and we had no success with them whatsoever. We had no embryos at all. I started to do acupuncture at that time because I heard that it was very beneficial. And my acupuncturist actually referred me to Dr. Gordon. A lot of his patients were fertility patients, and he heard a lot of positivity about Dr. Gordon. He knew him personally as well. And as soon as I visited him, I felt the same way. He's just his bedside manner is amazing. He definitely makes you feel like family. He just cares from his heart. And I just felt very comfortable immediately. And after going through what we went through with the other clinic, it was a welcome change. So we started to work with Dr. Gordon, and he was very open. He shared a lot of information. He sent us through vigorous testing, whether testing my husband's sperm or with me, making sure my tubes were still clear. It was just very thorough. And even with the recommendation of my myomectomy to remove my fibroid, it was a very difficult decision, but he was very gentle, but gave some good guidance and recommendations on the best course of action for us. So I just learned to trust him. I knew that he had our best interest at heart, and it was very easy to follow his recommendations and guidance. And in 2019, since we already had the 2 embryos, we worked with Dr. Gordon to do a frozen embryo transfer. That was in March of 2019. And our daughter, London, was born in November of that year.
Just about to turn 2 years old.
Yeah, she's 20 months.
Tell me about her.
She is a great combination of my husband and I, both in aspects of our personality and physically. Very athletic, she has a wonderful sense of humor. She even laughs at herself. I'm going to take credit for the sense of humor, but my husband may think it comes from him. Very active. I stayed home with her for a year, and that was wonderful. When we ended up putting her in daycare, she just thrived, and her personality really came out. She's a great child. She started sleeping through the night at 3-4 months old. It was amazing. So even to today, she sleeps like 11, 12 hours a night. It's amazing.
Great.
It's life-changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a joy. So no regrets at all. I would not change a thing. It's definitely worth it. Again, I know it's a very personal choice for everyone. We prayed often. One thing that I do want to share is never in my life have I had a doctor pray with me or pray over me. Dr. Gordon has prayed with me. This is when I get emotional because you don't expect that from a doctor. Going into my frozen embryo transfer, he took my hand and prayed with me, and I'll never forget that. And I will always be grateful for everything he's done for us. I would recommend him to anyone. He's family.
And your family to us. And there's a reason that those of us who work with Dr. Gordon and for Dr. Gordon at Southeastern Fertility are there. And it is because we value all life, because we care about our couples. We see you as not a commodity or a business transaction, but this is a chance to affirm life and change lives and help people who've gone through so much as you definitely did, Ingrid. So let's talk about this. Your daughter was born in November, and you'd obviously conceived her months earlier. So in this time, you must have learned that Dr. Gordon was leaving Northern Virginia and moving to Knoxville, Tennessee, to become co-director of Southeastern Fertility. I don't know if it was in the back of your mind at that time that you may want to have a sibling for London, but tell me, what you thought when you found out Dr. Gordon was moving, and then how you were processing everything from your own standpoint of continuing to build your family.
So I got Dr. Gordon's phone number. I called him immediately. Ingrid, I welcome you. I'm in Knoxville, but if you're willing to travel, I'm willing to help you. we're still in COVID. So we jump on a plane with London. That was the first plane ride. And we go to Knoxville. And I have a picture. We were so happy to see Dr. Gordon. His whole temperament and his attitude and his aura, he just looked so much more relaxed and laid back and comfortable. And he shared a little bit of his reasonings as to why he left the former practice and moved to Knoxville, and was just so much more happy and comfortable. And that was refreshing to see. We just jumped right in. He was familiar with us. He knew my medical history. We went back to if it's not broke, don't fix it. We went back to the same protocol. It was a natural cycle IVF. Didn't have to take a bunch of drugs and shots and, the things that I had to do prior. And it was just such a difference from our last experience. That was in April. We did our frozen embryo transfer, and we are 18 weeks pregnant, expecting our son at Christmas.
At Christmas.
Christmas.
What a great present.
I know.
Well, congratulations, Ingrid. This is just so great. And, I know you must have just been thinking, oh, wait, we have to travel all the way to Knoxville. Was it as bad as you thought it would be?
It wasn't. In terms of the city, it's a beautiful city.
It is a great city. Yes,
it is. I'm not going to say I wasn't a little nervous. I really had to pray for coverage because this was my first time traveling anywhere during COVID, and then we're bringing our daughter. It was a little scary, but we just felt like, God had us covered, and we loved the city. And I think as soon as we got to the office and saw Dr. Gordon, everything just kind of melted away. And we felt like this is where we should have been before, but this is definitely where we need to be now. And we were just so excited to do this process with him again. I don't know if I think because I had the experience with him prior, I was definitely willing to jump on a plane. I know that he shared with me that other patients from this area have actually gotten in touch with him as well. So I'm not the only one. And I think it just speaks to his professionalism and his bedside manner.
Yeah, you are right. We have had other people from that area come, and that's a blessing. And you guys have just been so gracious to us. Our whole staff here in Knoxville loves you, and you were kind enough to send us some thank you goodies. Our team always loves that. People in Tennessee love food, so that was absolutely the right thing to do. So a couple last things here, Ingrid, before we let you go. Talk about natural cycle IVF a little bit. That's something that a lot of people still don't know about. I mean, if the drug aspect of doing IVF and fertility treatment is something that intimidates a woman a little bit, natural cycle IVF can be a pretty good option. It pretty much takes care of that, right?
My goodness, yes. It was such a big adjustment for me to use. I mean, I'm just not a person who takes a lot of drugs and uses a lot of medication. And when I had to not only take these hormones, but I had to inject myself every night, you're measuring, it's just a lot. It's very overwhelming. Can be a little painful. And then you worry about, am I doing this correctly? Should I hire a nurse to do these injections for me? When Dr. Gordon said that I was a candidate for natural cycle, I was overjoyed. I couldn't believe it. And it was such a blessing. You do still take some hormones, but they're natural hormones that your body would make on its own anyway. And just the fact that you don't have to take these injections and kind of put your body through all that, it's a blessing. Health-wise, I've always had very regular cycles, and I've never had an issue as far as that goes. And when he told me that I was a candidate, we were all over it. It's a wonderful option. Yes, it should be marketed a lot more.
Well, thanks. You're talking to the marketing director,
Oh,
yes. So I'll get on that.
Yes.
Look, I appreciate that. Last thing. You've talked so much about your faith, and that's a part of this podcast. We're calling it Hope, Faith, and Infertility. you've walked this road, you've been on it for, over half a decade really now. Talk about the role that your faith has played as you and your husband, and now your daughter is a part of it, as you all have walked this family building road that, again, probably decades ago you wouldn't have thought this would have been the route for you, but it is what God had.
Exactly. And that was the point. So for me, God, I've always been very faithful. God knows and knew the desires of my heart. And I just felt, I've always prayed that his will be done. And I felt that I had to do my part in trying to have my family. Obviously, I had to play a big role in that. But I always felt that no matter what happened, it was God's will. And I was going to adhere to that and be comfortable with whatever outcome. Um, I think that always gave me a sense of peace. Although there are times when it gets very stressful and you're wondering if you're doing the right thing, if you should be doing something different, I always felt that God's will be done. I just felt, if he intended for me to have a family, I would have a family. If I needed to look at other options down the road, or children were not in our future, then I was going to live with that and be at peace with that. But I wanted to do everything that I could to ensure that I did have a family. And I am so grateful to God. I mean, there's been so many tears and prayers and family prayers, and it's been a wonderful journey with everything that we've been through, both good and bad. It's been a wonderful journey, and I wouldn't change a thing. But I think that the foundation of this entire process has been having faith that God will not steer you in the wrong direction, and you have to definitely keep your faith.
Mm. Well, we love hearing that. Again, congratulations that you are pregnant. Going to be a great Christmas present. We can't wait to see a picture of your son, and maybe you'll even be able to make it back to Knoxville, and we can see the four of you in person. That'd be great.
Yes, definitely. I would love to do that.
Well, Ingrid Cox has been my guest. Ingrid, again, thank you so much for encouraging others with your story and taking the time to do that on this podcast. I have a feeling God will use it in a great way. If you are interested in learning more about Southeastern Fertility and co-director Dr. John David Gordon, who we've been talking about a lot today, you can find out more about us by going to southeasternfertility.org. Again, that's southeasternfertility.org. I'm Mark Mellinger, and this has been Hope, Faith, and Infertility.